I had a really good idea of a topic for the show last night, but it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I was falling asleep, and I was like, I'll remember that. Didn't remember it. I remember thinking of the idea. I just can't remember what the idea was. I remember my nightmare. It was apparently I had my old truck. It was sitting on a hoist in the my old shop that I worked at, and apparently the power got flicked on, and it went up all the way. But apparently the hoist was like 30 feet tall, and it was a 3-story building, and the truck like hit the one metal beam for the roof, and it kind of like shifted it, and I was standing there, it's like, oh no, and then it like fell, and once it hit the ground it rolled, and for some reason there was like a 1930s Cadillac Coupe de Ville sitting there, and it just creamed into it. That was my nightmare.
What do you think it means? What would your therapist say that dream meant? That you have fear of hitting your highest potential because it's a farther crash down?
Maybe.
Hey everyone, I'm Brad from Calgary.
This is Sean from Cambridge, Ontario.
I'm Terry from Cornwall, Ontario.
Hey, this is Larry from Pitt Meadows, British Columbia, and you're listening to the Towing Life podcast.
Welcome to the Towing Life podcast, where the ditches are deep, the trucks are loaded, but the drivers are not. I'm your host, TowManG, and as usual, I'm joined by my co-host, friend, and former co-worker, the man with very strong opinions, Mr. PlainGuy.
What is going on, G? What is going on?
Oh, I've been spending my weekend building a 20 by 20 dog run, which is wonderful. It's like if you've ever bought anything from IKEA, harder than that, and all in metal.
What's it like? What is a dog run? You told me this weekend, and I'm like, it's a kennel.
Yeah, a big cage, pretty much.
Okay, so it's a nice way to say a kennel and a cage for your animal.
Sure.
Let them roam free.
Well, it's not for my dog. Plus, the 2 dogs that we got that are 9 months, Willow, our older dog, she just walks around everywhere. But these guys are flight risks. Sadie, Luna's sister, I've got Luna. Sadie's her actual blood sister, will chase and eat my peacocks. So we can't have that. And she chews through harnesses. She chews through leads. So I don't know why we think a metal fencing
like enclosure
mesh, is going to stop her from chewing through it, but we're going to try.
So you were spending the weekend building a big cage for your dogs.
Yes.
Nice. It's it's the weather to do it. As we've talked about before on the show, it is absolutely mild here in Ontario. Like we
plus 10 today.
Yeah, we still have not. I'm still waiting for winter to get here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like we've had like a little preview of what winter could be every here and there, but we have never actually had a full winter. I do not believe we have had a day under -20.
No.
And even if we did have a day up to -20, it was a day, right? Like we are used to a week of -30, that cold snap we normally get every year. I know out west they've gotten it. I know the East Coast has been pummeled with snow. We are stuck somewhere in Ontario in the middle where there is just nothing. Yeah. It's just,
I think we had snow on the ground for like maybe a week and a half.
Yeah.
Consistently, and that was it.
I think we identify as Vancouver in Ontario at this point, right? Like there's been no snow. It's been more rain. The weather changes every 5 minutes. We've seen
What's the point of living up north in the land of polar bears and meese if we're not going to get the snow to play in? Like, what's the point? I get it. We don't really have hurricanes and alligators, but like, I like the snow. That's the whole point of having winter. What's the point of winter without snow?
Absolutely. So, yeah, it has been a crazy time, and we identify as Vancouver. The weather changes every day. Like we had a day where we went from like 18 degrees Celsius during the day to a flash freeze and minus like 16 that night. Like it was a 40-degree weather fluctuation within the matter of like 6 or 8 hours.
100-kilometer-an-hour winds.
Yeah, exactly.
I lost both my garbage cans outside, and my barbecue cover came off my barbecue, and I have not found it yet.
And then the next day we had a little bit of a cold day, and then we were in the pluses again, almost double-digit pluses. Yeah. It's been a crazy year. It's definitely had an effect on business. It hasn't been great, obviously, with a full lack of winter. That can really have the impact. We've talked about that. But yeah, it has been it's been
We're
an
old
interesting
men. We're old men. We start off our conversation about the weather.
year. Well, before we get into any greater thoughts on this show, it's a good time to mention we always appreciate your questions, comments, concerns for the show. Some of the stories we've had, some of the people we've been in contact with over the years has been great. So how do you find us? It's pretty simple. You can head over to www.towinglife.ca. You can contact us directly by email at thetowinglife@gmail.com. That's thetowinglife@gmail.com, or by finding us on Facebook at the Towing Life Podcast. You can also, if you're watching over on YouTube, don't forget, head down below, leave a comment, hit a like, leave a follow, subscribe, all of those good things. We do appreciate you checking us out week in, week out. It's a free way to help support the show. Share us on social media, all that good stuff. We appreciate it all the time.
Don't forget to flip your calendars.
Oh,
So,
yeah, it's March.
Yeah, it's March now.
Oh, I gotta flip my. I am the worst at flipping calendars. I'm normally about 2 months behind.
I flipped mine just before we started. I flipped the one in the bedroom on the 2nd, and today
There
is
you go.
the 3rd.
There you go. Perfect. So yeah, hopefully everyone, that bought our recovery of the month calendar, be sure to switch over to March and take a look at that wonderful. What was the
Green Bombardier?
The Bombardier,
Yeah.
snowmobile thingy jiggy recovery thing. It's an awesome little tool. If I'm not wrong too, March was sponsored by our wonderful friends over at TowSoft. I can see the little orange square up in the corner. So
Can confirm.
So yeah, do not forget to switch those calendars, set the clocks back. I think that's coming soon too.
Yeah.
Today I want to get into a bit, the one nice thing is we're able to stay recent on this podcast. As much as it sucks to record so last minute and put all this pressure on you to do all this amazing production work that you do in your downtime, it allows us to talk about the most recent things that are going on within the industry. And if you are in the towing industry, and unless you live under a rock, you were able or seen this week's amazing recovery down in Louisville, Kentucky. If you haven't, and you're a listener of the show, you have to check this out. Suburban Towing. First of all, I want to give them a shout out by name. What an amazing recovery that they did. What a once in a lifetime opportunity they had to do something spectacular with, I want to say, the eyes of the nation, the eyes of the industry watching. Right? Because everyone was curious how this recovery was going to happen. For those of you that don't know, there was a transport truck and trailer that drove off the 2nd Avenue Bridge, I believe they called it, down in Louisville, Kentucky, or the 2nd Street Bridge, and was literally hanging, tractor fully suspended, hanging off the bridge. Trailer somehow stuck up on the bridge. I don't know what it was stuck on. Like, what stopped this from plummeting all the way? Was it that bit of guardrail we see down below?
Looks like the passenger side landing gear, kind of that
might have had a
it.
play. I'm gonna guess this guy was empty. I don't know. Again, I didn't see any, mention of whether it was.
It's a good thing it was a reefer trailer, because if it wasn't a reefer trailer, I don't think it would have the structural strength in the van body.
It's very possible there'd be a little bit more to it because of the insulation and everything on it. Yeah. So the tractor is hanging by the 5th wheel pin. Like, that is the only thing holding the tractor on, is that 5th wheel pin. This thing is fully suspended. Louisville Fire had to do an amazing recovery, which we see some rigging in the photo we have up on the screen, because the driver was still inside the truck. Like, don't forget to add a new driver's seat to the claim for the insurance on this, because I am sure not only were his underwear absolutely destroyed, his seat was probably in no better condition.
And this is the importance of wearing your seatbelt, folks, because
I don't think he would have left the cab even without the seatbelt.
He would have hit his head on the windshield, and I don't know, depending on if it was broken already from going through the barrier.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah, there's an awesome shot there that they have of the news on scene, where the fire department is doing, is getting the driver out, suspended with some rigging that they set up with their fire truck. It was absolutely a cool photo. These are, when you see this happen, right? If you're like me, you see something like this happen, you want to play.
You wish you were there.
100%.
Yeah.
Like I would have loved to have been live on scene to see how this team worked, to see how this team, came up with their ideas, their recovery plan, their everything. I didn't get the exact times, but to my understanding, it was a fairly quick recovery they managed to do given the nature of this incident. Right? We did a recovery, I'd say similar, except that it wasn't overhanging a body of water and it was actually came to rest on solid ground, but hanging off similar to this with the tires caught up and everything on the trailer. And the eyes are watching. It's something you do not see every day. So the pressure that goes onto that team is truly where I believe you see professionals stand out.
Yeah, because like, what's the worst case scenario if you got a tractor trailer flipped over on its side in the ditch? If something fails, it's just going to flop back over onto its side. Yeah, it might break a
You could
cable.
roll your truck. You could, there's a
Yeah,
lot of, we've seen that enough.
something like this, though, that truck falls down into the water if you screw up, and now you've got a massive environmental hassle. You got to get like a dredger out with a big winch on it, try to lift it back up, barges to remove it. It'd be cheaper just to leave it, leave it
It
down
would
there
be
for
an
the fishes.
absolute
Yeah.
shot to the company who did it if they weren't able to successfully pull it off. And that's the thing. You're right. Like I said, the pressure, the liability of everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is the importance of having good operators,
Mm-hmm.
good training, and good companies, right? So we'll cycle through. There's a couple other photos once they
They
got
must have
started.
been shitting in their pants doing this, even
Oh,
if they were 100% confident
100%.
in their abilities. I'm sure the operator, if he had 50 years experience, would still be shaking in his boots doing
100%.
this.
100%. There is no amount of training experience, right, that is going to prepare you for this exact scenario. There's training to help you the best of its abilities, but when you roll up on scene, man, you are wound, you are wired,
You
you
don't
are
have to
ready
worry
to
about
do.
overhead power wires. You got to worry about massive steel girders in your way.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You got to reach out past the girders, then you got to be able to recover inside the girders. Like there's a lot that goes into the ability to successfully pull off this recovery. You've got to have the equipment, which Suburban Towing had, obviously the equipment available,
And you're
right? They
working like you're very confined. It's 4 lanes. That's it. You got no shoulder. You got no extra room to play with. And you're bringing a 53-foot trailer by the looks of it up sideways onto this bridge, plus a
Mhm,
tractor that's dangling off of it.
and you're working within a window. If you look at where those trusses are, like you said, a very narrow window to bring it up through too. It's not like you have a wide open field to spin this thing around. I mean, if you had, again, if this thing's in the ditch, you can literally bring it up and turn it at the same time and
Yep.
place it. They didn't have that ability,
Yep.
right? They were, like you said, working in tight quarters, right? There's so much that played into this. There was videos of the entire thing happening. And if you look, like they've got their rotators outside the girders, supporting the trailer and the tractor, bringing it back up. They've got, like a clear lane. These guys put a plan together, right? They looked at the scene, they put a plan together. They had obviously some experience on their side. Whether we said you're never ready for a recovery like this without some experience and some good training and some good personnel on scene, you're not getting this smoothly, right? And they managed to bring that thing up and onto the bridge. And this is my favorite photo. And I don't know who these 3 people are. The only thing I can assume they were, 3 of the operators involved with the recovery. And a scene coordinator by the looks of it. These guys should be very proud of what they did that day.
Yeah.
They may never get to experience that again. I mean, the chances are slim they never did it before. The chances are they'll never do it again. But I wanted to point out, whenever I seen these photos, especially this photo specifically with these 3 gentlemen standing on the bridge after the recovery, what are the things that you notice right away?
Most of them have gray.
Most of them have gray.
Yeah. So the gentleman on the left, the gentleman on the right, gray beards. Gentleman on the right looks to be a little bit younger, just in the face. They've got the headsets.
Yes.
So they can communicate back and forth. And they're
Yes.
all wearing proper PPE. They got different color pants on, but they look professional.
It is the PPE. It was the nice thing. The recovery helmets were a nice touch as well, especially when you start working into rigging and getting into places. My thing was the Cinetic headsets. Those are the Cinetics brand specifically. I know because I have a set of them.
Yeah.
How do you do a recovery like this without good communication?
You don't.
You don't.
No.
Right? So what this brings me out to and why, it's kind of a great timing just with the industry in a whole and what it's facing both north of the border and south of the border right now, right? With predatory towing and unrealistic billing and all these things, or unreasonable billing, right? When we do recoveries, we charge out for our communication devices. Because in a recovery like this, how can you safely say that you can do a recovery without communication devices? And trucking companies will look at that and go, what is this? Let's say $500,000, whatever, charge for on an 8-hour recovery for these things. Well, it's, to cover the use of them, the cleaning of them, the repair maintenance on them. Like, everything comes with a cost nowadays.
Making
right?
sure that they're all charged, the equipment's available at the drop of a hat.
Absolutely. Now, this is a special circumstances where I don't think anyone would doubt it. But safety
this
is
bill could be $1 million, and people would be like, "Yeah, I can see it."
Yeah, exactly. The liability, the risk, everything involved. There's things to go with that. But no, it's communication devices, right? This company has gone out and invested, and those things aren't cheap.
No.
Right? If you look at a set of Cinetics up online, they are not cheap, and you got to run normally about 2 cases of them because there's like 5 or 6 per. So depending on the size of your team and the scale of the recovery, right? You want every team member to have ears on and know what's going on. So this company right here, Suburban Towing, went out and invested in not only stuff like Cinetics, they obviously went and invested in equipment. As you can see, multiple rotators on site.
Yeah, they got 3 50 to 60 ton rotators at least just sitting there on one.
I think the one photo almost, I want to see, but I think it was a straight truck, I thought. No, it was the rotators. They had 3 rotators on scene. So they went out, they invested in equipment, not only the trucks themselves, but all this supplementary equipment. They invested in training. If they didn't invest in training, this recovery is going a whole other way. They spent all this money to sit in standby for moments like this. Now, I don't mean just, Suburban Towing sits around all day until one goes off the bridge and that's where they thrive. But what I'm saying is tow trucks aren't this kind of work and this kind of training is not a day-to-day use thing.
No.
It is not something that you can invest that millions and millions and billions of dollars into to use on a day-to-day basis. But when the time comes, you need to have it.
If you think about it, so let's say, yes, they do invest in good equipment, good training for their operators. They've got good skilled operators. How often do you think that company, Suburban, has actually trained their operators to do a recovery off of some sort of ledge like that, like a bridge or something? Maybe once, maybe twice.
Yeah.
Because it's not something that you see every day. But you look at the firefighters and what they did. How often do they do weekly, monthly training? Well, that kind of answers it. The fire departments, they go out, especially in metropolitan areas that they have bridges and high rises. They train all the time. And the towing industry doesn't do that because we're normally a secondary responder. But you get into situations like this, like, yes, we're not dealing with human life, but the financial cost, if we screw up, is pretty severe. I'm not saying it's going to be the cost of a human life, but I'm still saying it's pretty severe. Should there be some sort of mandatory training? 100%. But the problem is that mandatory training is going to vary. It's not going to cover situations like this. Like, what if this trailer was another 4 feet forward and it was hanging off the rear axles instead of where it was? Well, it's going to be a completely different job again. The trailer might be almost completely vertical hanging off. Well, how are you going to do it? No, it's going to be completely different. And that's one of the reasons why it's so hard to train, especially in the towing industry. And it's a great excuse, don't get me wrong, saying that, oh, it would just be very difficult. There's too many situations out there to train everything for. We might not even bother because it's too difficult. But if you don't get some good groundwork and a knowledge base like these operators definitely had, you're not going to be able to think outside of the box and
Mhm.
pull off a recovery like this.
Yep. No, it's true.
Or
It's
sorry, think out of the bridge.
yeah, think outside the bridge.
Yeah.
Never mind think outside the box. These guys definitely went. Not only did they think outside the bridge, they worked outside the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's amazing, right? And in a time like I said, where we're talking about, we've seen it in the stateside. There's been calls for regulations. I think it was almost, I don't know if it was the national or the state level. I'm not super educated on it. Our friends, Jeff and Brad over on the Tow Business podcast, did go more into depth about pretty much a statement or a memo put out from the government or an industry sent off to the government saying that towing has become predatory. We want to include, we want to have a cap on this stuff. We want to control the towing industry. They're getting out of hand. We cannot continue letting towing companies charge whatever they want. And there was a post that I seen on Facebook that we've got up on the screen that was from a Rene Jimenez, and I don't think you'll mind. It's getting shared all over social media, so I don't think his name on our podcast is the biggest concern. Dear Mr. Pete Buttigieg, I can't remember. I knew the name. I had it earlier. Please allow me to show you and the rest of the nation what specialty equipment and professional skills can do to safely and efficiently recover and clear a blocked highway or bridge in this case. Tow trucks are emergency vehicles in some situations. Stop blaming the entire towing industry for predatory towing and junk fees. There are bad apples in every industry, like the trucking companies that are underinsured or uninsured and can't or don't pay for highway clearance law enforcement tows or wreck recoveries. We are left with wrecked vehicles to dispose of.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it was about, is that they were tired of all these hidden fees. They wanted to be able to get an upfront cost right away, is what they wanted. They wanted to be given a flat rate cost with no extra fuel surcharges, no extra admin fees, no extra, communication devices fees, none of this stuff. They wanted to just be able to give a flat rate. That's not how the industry works.
Look at a job like this. So let's say, okay, they get the driver out safely. You show up and you say, okay, it's going to be, let's just say $40,000 to get the truck and everything put onto the deck, and they agree with the $40,000 recovery bench park. As the operators are pulling out their lines to start rigging, the trailer breaks in half and the truck and the front half of the trailer go down the drink. You're not going to be able to do that same recovery for the $40,000 that they were just quoted and agreed upon, because it's a completely different recovery, because the situation changes. Recoveries like this, pretty much any large scale recoveries, is best done by the hour. You agree upon the hour rate. They know that you are a competent operation with competent drivers that are going to work efficiently and do your absolute best to get the job done in a timely and safe manner. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes, like if your local regional workers, your town workers, the common saying is, oh, it's a union job. It'll take 3 weeks to fill in 6 potholes, right? Because they're milking that hourly wage. Tow operators don't do that normally. I know when I'm blocking a lane doing a small recovery, I'm worried about all those people I'm holding up. Right? If I'm sitting in a parking lot and someone says, "Hey, can you move your truck? I need to back out." I'm just doing a quick unlock. I normally stop halfway through the unlock and move my truck so they can get out, because I don't want my brand, my company, to be tarnished by, oh, well, they just take their sweet ass time. They're not trying to help out the motoring public. They're just there to get money. And don't get me wrong, the money is nice, but like, I feel like tow operators generally, if you got into this industry, you want to help people. I don't think too many tow ops got into this industry because they just want to screw over everyone else in the screw over the general motoring public.
No, I agree. Now, the only thing you said is whenever you said, yeah, no, you get them approved on my hourly. Okay, yes, I agree. A recovery like this is based on an hourly billing procedure, 100%. However, I cannot, if I've got to go to you every time I need a separate piece of equipment brought in, because, hey, I ended up needing this, whatever. No, you need to know what my rates are. You need to put faith in the company. You can audit the company's invoice after.
Mhm.
I know we're a company, we have a person dedicated pretty much to taking photos of everything on scene while we're doing it, just that way, in case of an audit, in case of questioning
Mhm.
brought forward by either an insurance company, the government, so on and so forth, that we have a clear breakdown of everything that was used, why it was used, and proof that it was there, right?
Mhm.
That's the trick, proof that it was there, because we have seen invoices in the past where people are charging for things that they never actually used
Yeah.
or they never actually brought. Perfect example. I had a recovery a while back, maybe a month ago. This thing was out into the bush and everything else and through the trees, right? I think we talked about that, the long recovery. I had brought in a piece of equipment that I never ended up using.
Mm.
At the time of the original plan, because things change real fast,
Mhm.
I had an idea for this piece of equipment,
Mhm.
right? It was a winch box. If
Yep.
everyone's seen them going around social media. I brought it out there. It
Mhm.
attached to my skid steer. I still needed my skid steer for other work, but I did not need my winch box.
Mhm.
I'm not charging for it.
No.
But you would have, and we have seen it, and that's what they're talking about, all this extra, billing that's getting added on. Oh, well, it was there, I got a bill for it. No, it was there to be prepared in case that I needed it. Yes, you could argue that it was used on standby time. You could use that, argue that if I ended up needing it and I hadn't brought it there and we used it on another job, right, like you're paying to have it available at the recovery.
Mhm.
Sometimes that applies for trucks. Yes, absolutely. If I'm not using that truck right now, but I'm going to need that truck, or there's a high probability that there is a standby time and things that can be justified.
Mhm.
But to just say, I threw 7 trucks on scene to be able to bill for 7 trucks, no,
Yep.
you cannot do that.
Well, if you think
And
about it as like a driver's point of view, let's say PlainGuy here's doing a wreck. I just cleared. I'm driving by. I'm going to stop and see if he needs a hand.
Mm.
It's a one truck operation. I don't need to be there. Not billing for my truck being there because I just stopped to shoot the shit and call him a dickhead
Yeah,
for
but we're
doing
talking
it
like
differently than what I
the
was doing.
insurance isn't having a problem with 3 trucks being billed out on a single car MBC into the ditch.
Mhm.
Right? They're having a hard time with 3 rotators for a tractor that is, slightly off, pulled over on the side of the road too far, which again could be a 2 truck job. I'm not criticizing anyone who would send 3 rotators to that. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't apply to that. Oh, I stopped by.
Yeah.
But in a case like this, you need that equipment available.
Mhm.
You need that equipment available to you. And as a company, you cannot purchase all of this equipment to be able to safely and efficiently do these recoveries in a time of need,
Mhm.
and it doesn't just have to be a truck off of a bridge, right? We've seen many jackknifed across roads, car haulers that are a pain, all these kind of things. You invest millions of dollars in equipment. Millions is turning into more millions now with inflation and everything else. Cost of
Mhm.
equipment is going through the roof. To have it sit at the yard, and when it is being used, when you get those recovery scenarios, because you're a company that is prepared and trained for it, being told, hold on a second, you can only charge that piece of equipment out at this rate.
Yeah.
Well, that rate is okay if that rotator is, being used every day of the week.
Mhm.
It's not. You are paying. Towing is, because of the priority and everything behind it, you do pay a premium for the time that you're not using it. It's part of the industry, right? The
Mhm.
trucking industry will run at a cheaper cent per mile than a towing company. Why?
Mhm.
Because the truck is constantly in movement. That's how trucking companies generate their
Mhm.
revenue on that unit, right? They have a set number. I need to
Yeah.
meet this set number, and as long as I'm running, we're good. The towing industry is not like that. And so
No, our loads and hauls are not planned. Where a
exactly.
trucking company can say, okay, they've got a dedicated logistics team. A lot of times, like, okay, I'm going to take this load to Kentucky. In Kentucky, there's one going back pretty much to right where you picked up, and then I've got another one coming here. Very few dead miles in most of the
Mhm.
trucking
That's
industry.
how the trucking company makes their
Yeah.
their volume, or makes their profits, is by eliminating dead miles.
Mhm.
Towing industry has a lot of dead miles involved. Now, we always try and fill that gap the best that we can,
Mhm.
right? And if I have something that's planned, I will try and
Mhm.
work on, and maybe that's where the discounts can apply, and we can work on something to make everybody
Mhm.
happy. But when you need that done right away, in the case like this, where you need
Mhm.
that bridge cleared, you need that tractor picked up right away, or you know what I mean, you've got that rolled over transport. Like the costs have to be absorbed somewhere else, and they're absorbed, you know, through billing at a higher rate. You cannot justify buying $1 million piece of equipment to bill it out at $300 an hour.
No.
Right? Unless that piece of equipment is operating, and even at that case, you know, the specialty behind it, unless it's operating 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Right? So the problem is that the trucking industry does not understand the towing industry. They do not. They look at it and go, and I've had a friend of mine who owns a trucking company go, how much do you guys charge per mile? And I gave him a price, and he said, that is ridiculous. I charge this much. And I go, understandable. But, you know, we're two different billing practices here. We're two different, you know what I mean? Unless you can guarantee me that 4 tractor trailers are breaking down, you know what I mean? You can't do it.
Well, if you think about it, if you go out and you spend a couple $1 million on, let's say, a hydrovac truck, right? You've bought that truck knowing you're going to get a contract with your local town, a region, or building project. And you're like, okay, I can keep this truck busy 5-6 days a week for the next year on this one project. And within that year, you maintain that truck and you have a year's time to find work for that piece of equipment the following year when that term is up where the piece of equipment sits currently and is working currently. The towing industry, your rotator on a bad week could sit in your shop all week long. It gets started to start and run and maybe go for a wash. You don't know when you're going to need that piece of equipment. It could be dead. Chances are it's not going to be completely dead, and the truck should at least go out once a week. But you aren't in control of your call volume. Yes, good marketing, location, all plays into a factor of that. But when you have that kind of specialty equipment, it's very hard to make sure those jobs are lined up. And we're also not going out and throwing nails on the road for people to get flat tires and hopefully go into the ditch to need that type of specialty equipment. There is no control that we have to make our job or make that piece of equipment more appealing to the customer to use us, other than choose our company when shit goes sideways. Like it's a very hard niche to fill, and being a hard niche means more money needs to be charged.
No, it's 100% true. And so, you know, we do our best to keep things reasonable and pricing and everything else. Now, that being said, we've seen the other side of it, right? And, you know, there's the investment in equipment. There's also the investment in training, right? We talked about that. If you had a bunch of guys who have never done training and have just done what Bob said, playing around in the yard, you can end up with a very different story for a recovery here. Training, you know, we've got the Wreckmaster training. We've got different trainings that are out there. Wreckmaster is the biggest name, the one that hits, you know, comes off top of the head right away. They are an absolute important. When these guys are starting to calculate loads, resistance, everything else, they need to have that math down pat. That math is not, and I know, G, you've used this math before. Oh, looks heavy. I'll put a snatch block on it. That you might be able to get away with that with your 1500s in the ditch. You are not going to get away with that for very long when you start doing recoveries like this, right? There has to be a structured training and a good understanding from your operators. Again, comes with a cost, right? You want the cheap service? You can get the cheap service, right? And we'll go over an example in a minute of what, I don't want to say cheap service because, you know, but untrained and under-equipped. What is the end result, right? In a case like this, untrained and under-equipped could have been catastrophic, right? So a company has gone out, and again, Suburban Towing has gone out and has spent the money to have some of the best on the road. And when that time comes and the nation and the industry is watching, they executed. So props to them. I want to, you know,
here's your POB. Good job. Good job. Good job.
These 3 gentlemen, whatever your name is, if you want to reach out to us, thetowinglife@gmail.com or thetowinglife.ca, say, hey, that's me in the middle. Sorry about G picking on your gray hair. It was a compliment in its own
Wisdom.
weird way. But yeah, no, these guys, you know, props to you guys, Suburban Towing. You know, you definitely made a lot of people a lot of people in the towing industry jealous being able to do that recovery as smoothly as you did. Love to have been a fly on the wall in that tailgate meeting when you guys got there. So that being said, we'll pull up now a great opportunity to mention what happens with a lack of training and a lack of proper equipment. We'll pull this video up on the screen. I think the audio is still deleted. We have somewhere in south, it's warm, somewhere in south. What is this tow truck? Like, I want to know what this thing is.
Yeah.
But we have a car that has gone into a concrete ditch, I'm going to call it. I don't know what else to call it. It is a, you know, maybe it's a bike path of sorts, but it looks like some sort of concrete cutout ditch. And the vehicle is on its side, laying perfectly in the middle of this ditch.
This ditch looks to be about 6 feet deep because it's the width of the car. And the girth of the ditch is probably another 2 feet, maybe a foot taller than what the car would be on its wheels.
Okay, the girth. You mean the width?
The girth. Yeah, the girth.
Like, I'm not sure where you have been on the internet lately that you feel that girth is the proper way to describe the width of something.
Yeah.
But yes, the width of the ditch is probably about 6 feet, 7 feet. And about, like I said, 6 feet, 7 feet deep. And a vehicle is laying down on its side perfectly inside this. So for anyone watching at home, the vehicle needs to be lifted.
Yep.
That's it. It needs to be lifted out of this hole on its side, put down on its wheels. Well, these gentlemen, who I'm going to say, I don't care, are lacking training. And this company obviously doesn't have the equipment to do this recovery, have decided that they are, with 2 trucks and a slingshot approach, are going to attempt to get this vehicle out of this girthy ditch.
They're going to sit probably 10 to 15 feet away from the actual casualty itself, hook onto the rims or whatever, and pull more so sideways than upwards.
Yes, they are pretty much pulling this thing into the wall. There is no lift angle happening. Right?
It might be a 30-degree angle.
Yeah.
They're pulling on.
I don't know if the boom, I think they've stabilized their rear thinking that it's going to pull us towards them. That's why they've got their wheel lift down.
That's why they're,
Yeah. So instead of lifting up, getting that boom height up to attempt to have a bit of lift, they are, like I said, a 30-degree. Like, they're just pulling this thing into the wall.
Yep.
They're also, like I said, parked 20 feet away, which is, never going to get the lift. Those trucks don't look to be rated for much.
No, the single rear wheels kind of make me cringe.
Yeah. And they are single lining to the casualty.
Yep.
They are single line. They are creating the most amount of resistance possible and running a single line to, that way we'll know when it breaks. We'll know what the limit is. And so, they decide, okay, all right, you ready? Okay, we're starting to winch. We're starting to winch. This thing's gonna come, boys. We got her. Our low angle approach is gonna work. It's gonna work.
Let me turn my high idle up. It's not coming.
Yeah, Johnny, put the stick on the pedal. Oh, under the winch line right there scares me.
Whoa.
Right before it snaps.
As soon as the other guy starts to run the control, the yellow truck snaps. It looks like whatever was connected to the actual casualty itself let go.
Yeah. And I mean, give them both credit. They're both standing on the proper side to do this recovery. Right. I mean, there's obviously some training. They've seen, they were preparing for failure. And something lets go. We're not sure what it is. Like, this line looks like there's still a winch hook attached to it. It almost looks like it's the rigging is what let go. And it goes flying like a rocket, and they're ducking and running and everything else. Now, this recovery, I'm not sure if this recovery was doable with those trucks. Again, I'd like to see the rating on them. I think they had a much better, option than what they were doing with these. Like, I think with 2 of these trucks, I think you could have made that work.
Yeah, with the Z boom, I think if you both backed up to it with your wheelless folded up, the orange truck there, it definitely has an extended boom. The boom does look to be extended. I'm not sure if the yellow truck has an extendable boom. I think it probably does. If you both got up nice and tight to it, winched up to the rims, kind of boomed up and out with it just to get the back tires almost clear, and then try to drive forward together with proper communication, which you probably don't have in this situation. Like, especially like for the small wreckers like this size, it's one thing to be working side by side and you can yell back and forth to 20
100%.
feet. Now, grant you're still trying to yell over the crackling of winch lines, the truck on high idle. Communication's still difficult, don't get me wrong, but it's not impossible to
No.
be able to communicate back and forth. Especially since they're both standing on opposite sides of the truck. When Buddy in the orange here runs around the front of his truck to turn the high idle up, which I'm assuming he's doing, if the guy in the operating the yellow truck, if he's not paying attention to the other operator, which it looks like he kind of isn't, looks like he's looking at the casualty, he might not know that that other truck stopped winching.
Yeah.
And that's when, oh no, my winch line snapped because
I don't know if the
all
other guy
weight.
actually ever got back on his controls.
As
Like
soon as he got there, it looks like his hand went in. Yeah, as soon as
yeah,
he
but
went
he
in.
was. I mean, how many operators run that quick and they just okay start? Like, no, I think he was getting himself in position, grabbed onto his controls. Buddy in the yellow still pulling,
Yeah.
and just and then all hell breaks loose on the.
Imagine if the operators did the exact same technique these two gentlemen did with the bridge job. What would have happened?
Failure, catastrophic failure, injury, death.
Yeah.
Environmental impacts, everything else. Yes, this is the importance, and I don't want to, I don't know who these guys are. I don't understand why they're so far away. I don't understand. I don't understand because I don't think they understand.
No.
Right? The thought process that went into this recovery was obviously flawed.
Or very little at all.
Or very little at all. Hook a chain and pull. Yeah. This is the importance of training. Mm-hmm. This is the importance of not only investing in your equipment. Like I said, I think that equipment could have worked. It would have been interesting. We would have been pushing it to its limits, and there's still a good chance you might have had some sort of, I mean, you would have been doubled up at least. Like I said, with a proper plan, I believe that those equipment, you could make that work. Mm-hmm. But there wasn't one. There wasn't training, right? No. There wasn't, no one gave these guys the proper tools they needed to make this work.
And not even, okay, cool, you come up with an idea. There's no one there with the knowledge to say, that's a stupid idea. Let's not attempt that. Let's think of something else. It got to the point of a breakage because no one thought it was a bad idea and shit went wrong.
It's true. It's true. So no, it really goes to push that whole idea that like training and investing and everything is important, but at the same time, it comes with a price, and that price needs to be compensated through billing, right? So for the government that's trying to cap everything, right? I'm all for being transparent. Don't get me wrong. I am all for show me why that this, costs this amount of money. No problem. I'm all for that. I am all for show me that you are using this equipment, that, what I mean? This was a requirement as part of the job. Absolutely. I'm not saying that we can't make mistakes, right? Because I've been on recoveries where it's gone from plan A to plan B to plan C real quick. Because it just didn't, you can only envision so much in your head and use so much of the experience that you have that sometimes you're going to run into something new and you've got to adapt on the fly.
Yep.
Right? That recovery that took a long time there for the offload that I talked about was very much that plan. We were on our third plan before we ever started actually rigging. Right? We had gone through the plan. Okay, what about this plan? Nope, that's not going to because of this. Okay, what about this plan? Okay, what about a hybrid of these two plans? And then finally we came up with our end result. Right? So you're right. But that all comes with not only experience of people that I was working with, right? Combined with my own experience, but the availability of the equipment I had. Where if these guys are the only trucks they have available, right? The company didn't invest in other equipment. That's fine. Maybe they're just a small company. You got to know when to walk away. Right? It all comes down to if you want the big players, if you want the companies to grow. So if you want to have these top-notch companies available, these reputable companies, all of that, you cannot handicap them because of the bad actors in the industry. Right? If you want a company to have proper training, proper equipment, you can control that. It is not by pricing. It is not by capping and restricting and handcuffing financially these companies because of bad actors that are in the industry, right? You can't say that I can bill less if I'm justified in my billing because of a company that'll bill for 7 trucks on scene of a job that needs 2 or 3. You can't do that, because what is that going to tell the companies that have invested in this kind of money, in training and everything else, is that, well, you're going to either have to not make any money doing it, or significantly less money doing it, or not do it at all.
If you're going to handicap someone, you should really go after the big pharmaceutical companies like Johnson & Johnson that makes $160 billion a year.
We're not doing that. We're not getting into your conspiracy theories, Cult Boy. But no, it's a true issue facing it, and it's funny the timing that we just talked about to see in Ontario coming into play, and then the Americans are starting to deal with their own issue with
monkey
the same
see,
thing.
monkey do.
Oh, the insurance companies are absolutely going after everything.
Oh, we got away with this in Ontario. Oh, we could probably get away with it in other states and provinces.
I don't think it was that. I think it was complaints being put forward, and the timing of it is just it's ironic. And it's also because the price of these recoveries are starting to go through the roof. Why? Because our price of equipment has started to go through the roof. Our price of training has increased. Everything is increased. Everything is more expensive. The insurance companies had a year where they were probably running outside of their 30% margin, which is a true fact, right? As an insurance company, and we had this through our benefits package at work. I laughed at this when I had this meeting, and it said, okay, these are the premiums that you paid for the year, right? Between the company's portion and the employee's portion. This is the premiums you paid. Okay. And this is what you used. And we had used on one about 95% of what we paid in premiums. The use of the program had claimed. And I went, oh, that's great. Right. It shows my employees are using their benefits. And, we're using almost exactly kind of what we're paying for. So it's, they went, no, that's bad. Your premiums are going up.
Oh.
I said, what do you mean? Well, anytime your usage is more than 70% of your premium, a lot of times that's where the increase, because they have to be at their 30%.
Yeah, they got to make their profit.
Well, it's an insurance company. That is their job, to bring in more money than they pay out. 100%. That is business 101 for not just insurance companies, for most, right? The towing industry, our job is to bring in more money than we pay out. They just have a set premium, a set percentage that once you exceed that, we're starting to go up for the next year. And if you go, and if you go down, we probably won't go down. But if you go up again, we'll go up again.
It makes you think that if everyone used the roadside service at least twice in a year, roadsides probably wouldn't be around much longer.
No, they would increase their pricing.
Yeah.
Because they would have to, right?
Yeah.
So something to sit on, something to think about, the importance of proper training, investing in, equipment, training, supplementary equipment like the Synetics and everything that we talked about, communication devices. And for the love of God, we're just, for the good companies out there, we're just trying to, we're not a nonprofit. We have to make profit at the end of the day. We have to make a reasonable profit. We want to continue investing and growing and everything into all the specialty stuff to be able to be good companies. You can't handcuff us. Government, you cannot go after the bad players. Do whatever you got to do. We know who they are. That's the worst part. You know who they are. We know who they are. But you don't want to call names out. You know what I mean? You haven't figured out a plan to go after them specifically, so you're going to go after the industry as a whole.
If you think we are charging too much, then why did you call us in the first place? And as long as we were transparent with our hourly rates or our billing schedule, it was posted on our website. You had every opportunity to go and check that. And as long as the bill matches up with what we provided prior to the service, you chose us.
No, they didn't. That's the problem. That's the part you're missing.
The insurance company didn't choose us, but the customer who called us chose us. So if you got an issue with who they chose, you take that up with the insurance company's customer.
That's providing they chose.
Yeah.
All right. That being said, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Towing Life podcast, episode 130. We will be sure to see you again next week, where we will deep dive into TowManG's newest cult ideas and terrible pharmaceutical companies that make a profit.
Tinfoil hats, get them ready.
On behalf of myself and Mr. TowManG, thank you for joining us. Have a great day. Have a great night. Take care.
Toodles.